Good morning, everyone, and welcome. So the title of this talk is Shrink to Grow, or How Working on Small Projects Can Help You Get Better at Your Job. So what I intended to talk about here was a little bit about the creative process and like psychological side of things and some mental states that you can find yourself in and some pain points in the process, not just like in every development process, but in creative process. And then talk about how working on various types of small projects can help you get better and fix these issues. But unfortunately, I don't think I have enough time to cover everything, so I'm just gonna briefly go over the first part, point some of the main pain points and issues that it can cause your performance during the creative process to plummet. And then I'm gonna focus more on the benefits and some personal conclusions that can help you in your process and your projects. So my objective here to, as I said, define those pain points, try to provide some tips and tools on how to solve those, how to address them, and even prevent them. I want to help you. I want to try help you improve your skills or acquire new skills, and stay motivated on a long-term project that you probably work on or you will work at some point. And I want to help you kind of get some tools to better manage your resources, your time, your team, and everything in your operations. And before I get into it, I want to give a disclaimer. So I'm not saying that if you're having issues on a big project, you should forget about it and go and do something small and everything will, resolve in itself. I'm just saying that sometimes, things like crunch, multitasking, procrastination, they're just part of everyday, work, and it's usually unavoidable. But if you use your experience working on small things, you can apply that on bigger projects, on bigger scale, and you'll have kind of training and be prepared to actually tackle on those issues when they come up in big projects. So a little bit of introduction for those of you who don't know me. So I'm running a small independent studio called Prune Games. Right now we're developing a narrative-driven adventure game in VR. But I work in several different types of companies and environments. So I basically started my career as a software developer in a big IT company. So I went through all the agile methodologies and stuff like that. Then I worked in a very small tech startup. I was the fourth employee of that startup. And it was, flat hierarchy, not a lot, procedures and stuff like that. So it's very similar to running a small independent gaming studio. And then my first job in this industry was working remotely as part of a completely remote team. So I got the sense that dynamic as well, and working with a lot of people not in the same place. I spent some time freelancing before I opened my own studio, and that's basically it. So I have a lot of kind of experience from different types of environments, working environments. So I'll be sharing some of my conclusions that I come up with and some patterns that I've noticed. But I'll be also sharing some insights that I've picked up from other experienced people in this industry that I've talked with them on these subjects. So yeah, this is something I'm going to go quickly through, the flow state. You can find a lot on the internet about this, but it's basically the most optimal state of performance, and it's something that you should thrive to get into to get the most out of your work, and it's basically the sweet spot when the task at hand is of the right level of your skills and abilities. And the thing is that there's a lot of issues that can come up during the just work and creative process that can really plummet the efficiency of your work when you do it. And I want to address a couple of major ones that I've noticed have occur everywhere. There's definitely a lot more, but I think these are some of the major ones that can really affect your performance and motivation on a long-term project. So for starters, monotony, if there's lack of novelty, as there's repetitive tasks, people tend to get demotivated to work and their performance plummets. So there's stagnation, if you feel like you have a lack of opportunity to grow, either career-wise or through your skills, that can also bring you down in your work. Lack of recognition is kind of different than stagnation. It's you have appropriate challenge, but your work is not valued. for whatever reason, you know, like when you work on a project that you deeply work in and you're invested but you don't have control over it, that can also affect your performance very much. Then poor communication, too much communication, who like to spend their whole day in meetings when they can be working on something, concrete, or too little communication, like where there's not enough communication, there's a lot of confusion in the team, and that can really affect the performance of the entire team and yourself. Overwhelming workload, like you can have the highest level of abilities, but like if you have too much at your hands, that just is, there's nothing you can really do to increase performance. And that can bring, to crunch time, that can bring to a lot of stress. In the end, you can burn out, and it's really the worst possible scenario. And all of these things, like they can bring the morale of your team and yourself on your project. And when that happens, when you get into the apathy and nobody really cares anymore, it's something that you really don't want to happen, and your project will probably be it's in a really bad spot. And if you cannot, like, you need to figure out how to address this, if not, like, how to prevent it, so I want to start talking about the types of small projects that you can work on to address these and other different issues in your work process. So first of all, this is a no-brainer. It's personal side projects. It's the thing that when you finish your full-time job, you go home and you start working on stuff. And it can usually be passion projects, and it can give you, like, if you lack novelty, if you lack freedom at your work, this is the place where you can have all the freedom that you want, because it's up to you what you want to do, what you want to perform, And it's that lack of constraints. Sometimes constraints at work are good. They like force you to focus and go in a different direction, but there can be like bad, constraints that really limit your ability to work properly. So in a way, here you have a lack of constraints, you have freedom to experiment, to like try a bunch of different stuff. And it can be an opportunity for you to learn something. If you feel that stagnation at your work, if you don't have opportunity to acquire new skills, you can do it on your own, But also you can work on skills that you already have, but you want to master them. Maybe you don't have opportunities to master those skills at work, so you can really work on things that help you master your abilities. And lastly, you can work outside of your circle, meaning that you can work a job or an industry or try something new that you usually wouldn't be paid to work on. Like if you're a programmer and you want to start write short novels or whatever, nobody's going to hire you to do it, so you have to do it on your own, in your personal time. The next type of small project that I want to talk, and this is the major one in my opinion, is game jams. So is there anyone here who doesn't know what game jams are? Pretty awesome. So basically, yeah, it's kind of a collaborative events and collaborative type of just doing game development per the sake of doing game development. So it's basically people coming together with their game development skills and just trying to figure out something new. And I want to distinguish hackathons and game jams. Like game jams they're basically the same thing, but they have different like connotation, So game jams, they're like collaborative thing of, like trying to test out stuff, but hackathons are more of a competitive thing. They usually have prizes, and they're usually organized by companies trying to, recruit people or market themselves or promote themselves or products, something like that. And they both have their roles in helping you get better at stuff, but they just approach it from different perspective, So the main thing here, so what is similar between game jams and personal projects is that you can experiment as well. You have freedom to do whatever you try, except that you have some constraints in game jams, and it's kind of similar to your work environment. So it allows you to kind of recreate the situation of like being at work, but with a little less constraints, and constraints that actually you can control. So basically the main constraints on game jams are, first of all, time frame. You have limited amount of time, like 24 or 48 hours. Then you have theme, and theme defines that kind of lack of freedom. So you work on things, but you have to respect that kind of constraint. In a way, it's very similar to, you know, having a GDD that you have to work by, or having you know, requirements from clients. So it kind of gives you a tool to experiment and to try to push your agenda forward, but also trying to satisfy the other constraints. And the benefits of game jams can be seen on an individual level, but also on team level. So I want to talk about individual benefits. So as I said, similar to personal projects, you have experimentation, exploration. But it's something that I think a lot of people don't get or haven't thought about. And I think if you take anything from this talk, like as a takeaway, it should be this, that game jams can be an excellent tool to prototype. And when I say prototype, I don't think just like prototyping ideas. Of course, prototyping ideas, testing stuff, you know, trying new mechanics, seeing if your idea has real value, you know. So basically, besides that, you can prototype a bunch of different stuff. So you can create situations and circumstances that you would usually find on a bigger project, and you can scale them down and work on those situations and just train your skills in that sense that you wouldn't be able to train in any other way, you know. And if you have to work on them when it comes on a big project, then it's kind of too late, you know. You're like thrown in a fire and you have to figure it out. So, you know, and it gives you a lot of opportunities to, for instance, like train your risk taking. You know, taking risk on big projects, it can really have, you know, the consequences are going to be big on big projects. So they can be either positive or negative, it doesn't matter. You know, sometimes not taking risk can have negative consequences, but if you don't practice taking risks, then, you know, you won't be as good at it when it really matters, you know. And in like game jams, you can actually prototype taking risk. You can do it on purpose to try to figure out what works and what doesn't. You can do the same thing with estimations. You know, like usually when you estimate things on a big project, things tend to change, and you don't really have that much data about if your estimates were correct or not. But if you like limit yourself on a 24 hours project or 48 hours and try to make estimates, the feedback is evident right away. So when it ends, you know, like I made good estimates, I didn't, what was wrong, what I can fix. So it's a great opportunity for that, for prioritization as well. You know, you have to figure out like what are you looking for out of your project? What's the thing that brings the most value to your customers? To do, what's your end goal? You know, like if you're developing a narrative-driven game, it probably doesn't matter if animations are bad, if the story sucks. You know, so you have to focus, and by doing it on a small scale, you can even practice your prioritization skills. You know, you can, as I said, prototype a lot of constraints. You have time constraints. You have like the theme can be a kind of way for you to limit your abilities, but still try to answer the requirements and still do it in your way. So there's no easy way to test that except maybe in this type of situations. And you can even prototype crunch. You know, if you've ever participated in a 24-hour game jam, you probably won't sleep more than a couple of hours. And you know, like that last few hours until the end, where everything is just mess and you have to patch everything together and you're very tired. It's kind of the same feeling when you're crunching, like in the worst possible, you know, situation. So in a way, you can try to figure out how you function in crunch time to see like what works for you. Are you more performant the more you work, or should you take a break or stuff like that? So you can basically even prototype crunch with game jams. On a team benefits, it's basically you get all the same benefits you would on an individual level, but like if you with your team can apply to a game jam, or you can even organize your own internal game jams in your company if you have enough resources, enough people. And the benefits, as I said, there are prototyping benefits. You can figure out all these things as well. But one of the biggest benefits that I've seen is role swapping. So it's an opportunity for people to work in positions that they don't usually work during, like everyday work. And you have opportunities, for instance, if there are people in your team that think about changing the path of their career, like if you have an artist that wants to code a bit and become a technical artist, this is a great way to give them opportunity to test it out, like on a semi-real project, and also for you to see how that person performs and if that's even a good idea, And you can even do things like getting people to work in roles that they don't usually work. Because like what I've noticed in big companies when teams are not integrated, where you have a separate department for art, a separate department for programming, there's usually kind of tension between those departments. Everybody's blaming everybody else and thinking that their work is more important. So in a way, if you organize like game jams in a way that people take on roles that they don't usually take, and kind of not force them, but give them opportunity to try and perform those tasks. They might figure out how other people work. They can figure out what are the challenges, and they can, in a way, like you can create more empathy, so they can figure out how it looks on the other side, so like the collaboration can get better. And if you like implement your internal game jam as a hackathon, you can create sort of a healthy competition between your teams and inside of with your team members, And you also can create opportunity for people to work together. If you have a big company with a lot of different teams and projects, some people don't get a chance to work together. So if you organize them in a way that they can work together, even if they don't, it kind of brings on novelty, and you use it as a kind of team building, but like active team building, And this all can really affect on improvement of culture in your team, and can affect, moral boost, which also brings performance in your team and on your project. So the next type of work and small projects that I want to talk about is client work. So the obvious, benefit of client work is extra cash, some more of the green stuff. But the different benefit of working on client projects is opportunity to get to work on more real-world projects. So like game jams and personal side projects, they kind of allow you freedom to do whatever you want, but they're not really the situations that occur in the real world, like where's demand for such stuff. So you have an opportunity to kind of explore the landscape of the industry a bit more, to see how other people function, how their projects work, to maybe pick up some stuff, or to see how you're already doing some great things. And it can be also a great opportunity for you to practice your soft skills, like negotiation skills. You can try to sell yourself for more, and it can give you leverage on the other side, where you can maybe ask for a raise or for, advancement in your career, in your current company, because you have more opportunities, so you have more leverage to do so and negotiate. And another thing that you can have is external validation, But I'm not talking about like if nobody likes your Instagram post, then you get sad. It's like external relative to your internal work environment, So kind of if you have lack of recognition, if you feel stagnation at your work, having other people value your work and pay you to do it can really boost your morale and help you be more efficient and work better. And the last type of small project that I want to talk about, and this is very interesting for me, is online challenges. So it's basically any kind of your way of you committing to publishing your work online for everybody to see, so for public audiences. And what that gives you is, first of all, accountability. So like if you do something in your own room and it kind of gets hard and you don't want to do it anymore, like you can just give up and stop doing it. But if you commit to do that and share it online, you have that extra voice in your head that says like, oh, I cannot show the world that I'm not consistent and that I don't do stuff well and that I'm not a good creative person, you know, so it also trains you consistency, you know, it forces you to do stuff. I mean, if you commit to it, it forces you to commit to it and be consistent and work on it, you know. Imagine it like being a training, you know, if you miss a training session, you're probably not going to see the same results as if you be consistent and commit to it. And also it increases your visibility, you know, like if nobody except for your mom and people you work with know what you do, like you cannot get those opportunities. And I understand with client work, not too many people get opportunities, but this is a way to increase your visibility, get more opportunities, you know, and it can be opportunities for you to perform work for other people, to work on different kind of projects, but it can be also a way for you to collaborate, you know, like somebody can find, you can find your next, you know, co-founder, co-creator for your next company or project. And another big benefit is feedback, obviously, you know. You get yourself out there and you get a lot of feedback, you can get a lot of trolls, but you can also, if you see a pattern in the feedback on your work, you can figure out what are the spots that you should be working on, you should polish. And also, like, through feedback, you get a lot of different ideas that you wouldn't come up with yourself. So I want to give you a few examples of very successful online challenges. So the first one is a guy called Beeple. I mean, his real like nickname is Beeple Crap, but I didn't want to put it on a slide. So basically, he's a motion designer who decided to commit himself to hashtag everyday or everydays. And he became committed to creating a complete picture every day. And he has been doing that for this many consecutive days, which is more than 12 years. So for 12 years, he has been publishing a complete picture every day. And he organized his years like in rounds. So each year he set a goal for himself that he want to reach by the end of that year, and he works on it. For instance, learn a new programming language or focus on some part of his creative process. And it got him, first of all, it got him a lot of attention, a lot of publicity. He has like more than 500,000 people following him just on Instagram, and I think much more on other social media. But he also got a lot of opportunities to work on a lot of cool projects, and even for people in our industry. So he worked for Riot Games, Activision, Magic Leap, Apple, Adobe, etc., etc. And you know, his work reminded me of a saying that says the best time to plant a tree is like 12 years ago, but also right now. So I know this might seem like an extreme case, you know, like this guy's crazy doing this constantly for 12 years. But in a way, you know, if you haven't had opportunity to do it for 12 years, you can start right now. And I have another example which is a little less extreme and much more closer to home. So it basically shows you that it can be done on a smaller scale. So a local game developer from Serbia, Nikola Damjanov, he's a really good 3D artist. He was called to participate in a project Substance Alchemist, which is kind of a project for beta testing the newest release of Substance software. I mean, I'm not a 3D guy, so I might mess some stuff here. But basically, it's a beta testing, you know, program where experienced like 3D artists get a chance to you know, test it out. So what he wanted to do was like test it out in a real world use case, like he would use it, you know, in his work. So he came up with an idea to create a material a day, which was kind of challenging at that time. But he tested out, he used made with Substance hashtag, then tried material of the day. And when he figured out that it's actually possible to do it, he committed to creating 100 materials in 100 days. So he started his material marathon. And basically what it helped him do is get a hold of a totally new tool for him. So he kind of improved his skills in that way. He also created a bunch of assets that he can share, and he actually shared this online for free. So if you Google him, you can find his these all materials and use it in your games. And like cherry on top on the entire experience was that he was invited later to Shanghai to give a talk and workshop and to share his experience with the tool. So it's kind of on a smaller scale, shows you how commitment for an online challenge can really help you get a lot of benefits. And I understand these two examples are kind of related. So I got a couple of like hashtag and challenges that you can participate that are game dev related. So the first one and really big one is Screenshot Saturday. So it's basically a way to showcase your progress on an ongoing project. And you do it by sharing an image, an animated GIF, or a video, you know, and it gives you opportunity to share your progress early on, so you can kind of increase the visibility of your project. You can start building community around it pretty early in the process. And I know for a fact that a lot of publishers and scouts for publishers follow this hashtag on Twitter, so looking for new games to publish. So it's a definitely great way to get attention as well. But if you don't have an ongoing project, you can but you have work that you want to showcase as a game developer, you can use Game Dev Hour, which is a way to showcase your talent online the same way you would with Screenshot Saturday. And it's basically every Sunday from 10 p.m. Central European Time, or just convert it to your time zone. You post stuff that you've been working that week, or whatever progress you've made. And you can even go a step further and try to make a game like every week or every month, you know, and you can follow hashtag Weekly Game Jam or go to the website. And you can also go to itch.io/jams, which is a complete platform where you can start your own online game jams, or you can participate in other people's game jams, and they really vary a lot in the time frame, in the, you know, intensity and everything. So if you want to commit to that as well and share your work online, you can do it as well. And I want to finish this talk with an ultimate example that really showcases how different types of small projects can really help you get from nothing to something really big. So I hope a lot of you know Rick and Morty. It's an awesome cartoon with a great animation, really great writing. It's really critically acclaimed, and it has like a cult following. So basically it's on Adult Swim, and it was developed by Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon. But how these two guys came to work together is basically Dan Harmon and his friend Rob Schrub were very frustrated with their working as writers for TV and movies for big companies and, you know, executives. And they were very frustrated with the limitations they had. So they kind of created their own small event, which was called Super Midnight Movie Show. So they kind of rewrite the end of popular pop culture movies and then perform it for one another. And it kind of grew. A lot of people started coming aboard, you know, working on that. And it grew up to such extent. So basically, this is an example of personal side project. You know, they were working on it because they were frustrated with their work. But it grew in such amount that they couldn't book a venue anymore to get all the people and to play all the movies. So they started a website, Channel 101, which is, and that website had an online challenge, a monthly online challenge, where people would send their cartoons and vote for other people's cartoons, so the best ones would like get shown on a festival, which Super Midnight Movie Show became to be. You know, and one of the groups that actually worked on that and started making cartoons for that show was Justin Roiland with his crew, you know. And they applied on it on a monthly basis, you know, and they failed for a lot of time. So it was an online challenge that they used to improve their skills as cartoon makers. And if you think about it, like producing cartoons is basically very similar to game development, except for the interactivity and programming. But the creative process is pretty similar. And they had to do it like on a monthly basis, a complete cartoon on a monthly basis. So they did it a lot of times. They failed a lot of times. But eventually they came up with something that was at the time called The Real Animated Adventures of Doc and Marty. So you can see the difference between Rick and Morty and the other show on the right. And it was basically a way to you know, annoy Universal executives, because it was directly infringing on the copyright of Back to the Future. But it was something that really resonated great with the community of the Channel 101, and they won with this, like, they won the festival the time they were showing it, and it kind of brought Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon together, you know. And there was obviously a lot of steps after that, but it was like a start of a great collaboration that brought them to a huge successfully show, you know, that is now worldly acclaimed. So yeah, this is basically, I think the ultimate example of how small projects can really help you out to be better and create something new. And just to sum up everything, so I want to say that what I think is that small projects can really help you improve your skills and to acquire some new skills and to help you better manage your resources, your time, your manpower, whatever limited resources you have, that it can help you be more productive, more efficient. And overall, you can use small projects to prototype stuff and to use them as a tool set and a framework to help you polish that group of your skills that then you can later apply on a bigger scale and on a bigger project where it really matters. So that's it from me. Thanks a lot for listening, and if you have any questions, we have time for Q&A.